But right now we are here in this session with my actual classmate that I've known from way back, Ka'iu Kimura, and she has the opportunity of sharing from just the great work that she does at Imiloa. It was interesting. We met the other day, and we're discussing about like her kuleana of really speaking to researchers and um, petitioning them to really have a indigenous perspective and a Hawaiʻi perspective in doing their research here in Hawaii. And the great thing that we came to is the understanding that that is the perspective that each of us should have as educators in Hawaii. So I'm really excited to introduce to you Ka'iu Kimura. And just on another note, if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat, and myself and Charmaine will monitor that chat. And then at the close, we will be able to address those things. So mahalo nui, and to you, Ka'iu.
Mahalo nui e Eden. Aloha nui o kou mai nei aina o hilo. Kahi nona ka ua ho'ope puahala o upe loa. Nāna ho'i e lu kalihilihi o nā lehua kaulana loa o mō kaulele. Aloha nui kākou a pau. Greetings, everyone. Here from Hilo, the place famed for the hala groves of Upeloa and the beautiful lehua of Mokaulele, whose little petals get scattered by the drenching rains here in Hilo. Aloha nui. Mahalo nui loa e ko ka ohana kamehameha for putting this conference on. And mahalo nui in particular, yaoi e kanani no ko kono ana mai ya'u. E ho'i ke mana'o, me Eden, me Charmaine, for the great support. So mahalo nui loa to everyone. Mahalo ho'i ya'u ko e ka po'e anaina nana. I akua koa I ke yala. To those of you who have chosen out of the many sessions to come to this one today, mahalo nui loa. My name is Ka'iu Kimura, and although I'm currently in Hilo, I grew up in Waimea on Hawaii Island. And from a young age, I remember hearing ʻōlelo Hawaii from my uncle and others, that his friends that he would bring to sit around my grandma's dining table and just wala'au, talk stories. And so that was something I grew up with, but it wasn't until I had these two young keiki come with them one time to my grandma's house. And they were speaking fluently in Hawaiian. They only spoke Hawaiian. And when I heard the language come out of two young babies, that is when I think it really impressed upon me the power and the importance of our ʻōlelo transferring from our kupuna and the elder generations to us in this generation and even younger. So at a young age, I remember that as an impactful experience, and that is what interested me to come to UH Hilo after graduating with Eden from Kamehameha Kapalama to pursue ʻōlelo Hawaii and to join in the effort to renormalize our ʻōlelo in all facets of our communities here throughout Hawaii. So I went on to get my degrees from Kahakaʻula o Kealapono College of Hawaiian Language at UH Hilo. And while I was in the graduate program, along with my uncle Larry Kimura, we were asked to help to join in the effort to build this center that we now know as Imiloa. Imiloa, meaning to explore, seek new knowledge, make new discoveries, achieve new landfall in order to create meaningful, sustainable opportunities for our community. So the mission at hand when we joined was to build this center that would tell the amazing stories of our people, of our lahui, our connections to our world and our universe around us, and to bring that together with modern astronomical pursuit of understanding these similar things of our world and of our universe. Imiloa has been open now for 15 years, and it's a great place to come and learn about exploration and how we, the people of Hawaii, have explored in the past and how we're continuing today and on into the future. So Imiloa is an education center at UH Hilo that was designed to integrate a Hawaiian worldview and modern scientific inquiry through educational opportunities. We believe that our Hawaiian worldview has a holistic approach that starts from the context of place, culture, and language, and that on this foundation, Imiloa embraces multiple ways of knowing in the belief that inclusion and diversity strengthens our understanding of the world and our relationships therein. Imiloa is a product of courageous and collaborative effort on the part of many from our communities throughout Hawaii Island. And we offer experiential planetarium programs, interactive exhibits, educational programs, and services for both local and global audiences of all ages and interests. It's a great place to come and visit once we reopen after being shut for nearly a year due to the impacts of COVID-19. In 2010, I was appointed director of the center, and it continues to be a privilege for me to serve as its leader. Today's presentation is about a developing program under Imiloa that brings students, teachers, cultural experts, and scientific experts together to create naming opportunities for scientific discoveries being made here in Hawaii. He aha ka mea nui o ka inoa? You know, what is significant about a name? If we take Imiloa as a name itself, this was a phrase that we took from a quote that was scribed by Kealapono from a context of ahukupanaha ya Hawaiʻi ʻImiloa a ole e pau na hana a Hawaiʻi ʻImiloa. So nui loa ka ike o Hawaii. Hawaii is rich and bountiful with great knowledge steeped in this land, and there is no end to our people's search for new knowledge. So taking Imiloa as referenced in that phrase penned by Kealapono, we thought it was an appropriate name to choose for this center, and calling forth an intention for the foundation and the purpose of Imiloa to be the center of continual exploration, searching for new knowledge and new perspectives on a foundation that is uniquely Hawaii to empower and strengthen our community. Other, meanings of names is like in this slide I'm bringing up is to commemorate significant events or activities that have happened. And so in this ki'i, you see to the left Queen Emma in her lole hololio. And on the right is my ohana, my kupuna kualua, William Seymour Lindsay and Kaluna Lindsay. Queen Emma, as we know, documented in several mele, had excursions up to Mauna Kea. And one of her trips up the Mauna, she had actually asked for my great-great-grandmother Kaluna to join her on that expedition. But Tutu Kaluna was hapai at the time and couldn't make the journey with Queen Emma. So instead, her kane, Tutu man, William Seymour Lindsay, went and accompanied Queen Emma. As a result of their travels up to Mauna Kea and the elements that they encountered, the rain and the fog and the cold, this name below, Uncle Jim Ka'alua Kahalelau Mamane Lindsay. Kahalelau Mamane is a name that commemorates that particular trip up Mauna Kea. So this was the keiki or the pepe that my tutu was carrying at the time that they traveled up to Mauna Kea. So to commemorate Queen Emma's trip to Mauna Kea, she gave that name Kahalelau Mamane because as they were ascending Mauna Kea, they took shade under the mamani tree in order to be protected from the rain and the elements that they encountered. So names also is about commemorating and remembering events that have happened, and to have that transfer through generations to come as a way to commemorate and tell that story through a name. Other ways in which we name is also, as we can see, this is a ki'i taken from the Puke of Nainoa Hoku, written by Rubalate Kavena Johnson. Mea nui ka inoa, connecting names to celestial objects have been a part of our lahui for generations and generations, evidenced by this one particular page photographed. Take note on this page that there are many names, and as you see the description of it, many of them describe the actual name, say what it is. Keola is a star, said to be the patron star of Lanai, tells a bit of Mana'o about that name, but you can also see that there are names that have either no data or modern. So Ki'aha, for example, for the Big Dipper, that indicates that our people gave names to things that they either learned about or were shared from with different contexts. So creating names and honoring celestial objects through names clearly was something that our kupuna did for many, many years. If you go down too and you see that Kokowiki, named for Kamehameha Ekahi's birthplace, which was believed to be seeing an astronomical event happen at the time of his birth. So another name of commemoration. So Inoa, our Hemea Nui, have played and continue to play a big role in how we tell story, pass on information, and share connections to place, to events, to people. And Hemana Nui Koka Inoa, names call forth intention for whatever it is that you're naming, whether it's a keiki or a hale or a papahana, a project or an initiative. Names are very intentional for the connections that are brought forth through that name. So fast forwarding to this ki'i, we've been really blessed at Imiloa to be able to work with many, many community experts from a variety of different fields. And just to give a little bit of mo'oku auhau or mo'aukala to this naming project that I'll be describing, A Hua He Inoa, I wanted to recognize John DeFries to the left, his ki'i, as he approached me one day back with this letter. He had this mana'o that came to him in a dream about, this practice of naming things, and in particular naming celestial objects to further ho'oia or affirm our connections to those celestial beings. And so he thought, well, what if we continue this practice today and work with modern astronomers working in Hawaii who are making discoveries and helping to shed a different light of connection to these objects of origins for our universe. So hearing his mana'o, and he also took it to people like my Uncle Larry Kimura there featured, and Doug Simons, who is the director of Canada-France Hawaii Telescope and an astronomer by training. He floated this mana'o by them as well. And so as we were in the middle of talking stories about what this could be and how we could partner between our Hawaiian community and the astronomy community for this intention or this purpose, this object in this picture came flying through our solar system. It was the first interstellar object, meaning something coming from outside of our solar system that came through. So it piqued a lot of interest in the astronomy community. It was first detected on Haleakala by the Pan-STARRS Observatory there, and further followed up for research by the Canada-France Hawaii Telescope on Mauna Kea. So Doug, immediately recognizing the significance of this discovery, emailed me and said, "Ka'u, I think we have an object that we should try and name and see where it goes." So relaying the information to my Uncle Larry, Doug only gave us 72 hours to come up with a Hawaiian name. And within that time frame, my Uncle Larry came up with this name, Oumuamua, which infers sort of something, a messenger or a scout sent in advance to come and check us out. So Larry suggested the name Oumuamua to the scientific team through Doug. And before we know it, the scientific team loved it. They loved what the meaning of the name inferred. And immediately it was adopted as the official name for this object. The interesting thing is today that some astronomers are looking at this object and saying that it in fact was intentionally traveling here to our solar system. So the meaning behind Oumuamua about this messenger or scout sent in advance, it's kind of interesting how it's connecting up with some of the scientific theory that is now being further explored on this object. But for us, this was a big ho'ailona to say like, oh, okay, if the scientific community is open to having these kinds of discussions with our Hawaiian language speakers and our Hawaiian knowledge, then maybe we should push the envelope a little bit further. So, after seeing, I think it was like 15 billion hits or something online through the, on the World Wide Web, we realized, and a lot of it was about the actual discovery, but a lot of it too was about the name and how people were intrigued with the name. We thought, okay, maybe this is something we should try and further investigate. So we we brought in more people. And in this picture, or in this slide, you can see this is our working group of people that we brought in to help us further build upon what we had experienced with Oumuamua. So A Hua He Inoa is really a collaborative effort led by Imiloa that is hoping to shift global paradigms, positioning Hawaii as the first place in modern context to weave traditional indigenous practice and language into the process of officially naming astronomical and scientific writ large discoveries being made here in Hawaii. As Hawaii celebrates nearly 40 years of revitalizing our ʻōlelo Hawaii, we acknowledge the capacity and the relevance of our ʻōlelo and the worldview that it informs, expanding in and through modern context. So we thought, okay, this was great, that Larry and Doug were having, and all of us working committee people who were fortunate to be a part of that, thought it's great that we had these conversations, but we really need to expand this effort and include and be an active part of it, our young generation, our keiki, our opio, our haumana, our kumu, because that is where the power would be, is as our opio together with our experts, right, from Hawaiian experts to scientific experts, can come together and have our opio be a part of that whole process of analyzing, discussing, researching, digging deep in order to co-create and produce an inoa that would be contributed to our global understanding of these discoveries. So we brought together, I think, about 13 haumana from Hawaiian immersion schools across our islands, from Maui and from Oahu, Maui, and from the west side of Hawaii Island and the east side of Hawaii Island. And they retreated with us for only two days. They spent one night with us. On the left, we had a lot of time with them to dig into Ike Hawaii that stems from the Kumu Lipo, from Mele, and from other records of Ike Hawaii that have been passed down. We also took them up to Mauna Kea and had them have an experience there all the way up to the summit. We took them in the observatories to hear and learn from the observatory staff about how these telescopes work, right? What the process is of scientific inquiry, the kind of information they're gathering from the cosmos. And then that was day one. And then day two, we actually had them meet amongst themselves to discuss and to name 2 objects that were uniquely discovered from Mauna Kea. So I have a video I want to share with you where they can ho'ike ia'oi ka mo'olelo.
Whether in a classroom, at the kitchen table, or mingling with friends, the Hawaiian language is once again being heard here in Hawaii.
Aloha mai kako o ka ea ala paike ia maki a lapule nei maki aloha koka ko polokalama ʻōlelo Hawaii ma ane ino ka homeo nā mele Hawaii kapa Hawaiian FM.
Ma ke ki'i nui, ma ke make e ulu hoa e ka ʻōlelo Hawaii ma na honua nua hou. O ka ʻaoʻao epekema, kekahi honua nua hou loa no ka ʻōlelo Hawaii.
As Hawaii's only bilingual informal science center, Imiloa is a beacon of the continued relevance and capacity of the Hawaiian language, even to the science of astronomy and the names given to celestial bodies.
Oia e ike au ka hiko, ua kapa inoa ia, na ano mea like ole. Ua pōmaikaʻi, ako, ke ao holo okoa, i ke moʻopaʻa, i hoʻopaʻa ia, no ka mea I leila ka waihona o keia ike ka mea loa ia kākou.
Larry Kimura brings a wealth of knowledge to this process of kapa inoa, or the art of creating Hawaiian names, even to new discoveries like this extraordinary asteroid that otherwise would have simply been known as 1I 2017 U1.
No laila, mahape mai I ke wau. Oh, pune ka honua I loko o ke au epekema kilo hoku. O lilo he mea nui loa. A pela I nono oi wau o keia ola o ka kako ʻōlelo Hawaiʻi. Inā ʻale kākou e hoʻomaka e nana I ka hoʻomau ʻia I waena o nā hanauna hou. Pehea e ʻike ai no keia mua aku. Keia hana, kapa inoa.
And so the A Hua He Inoa initiative was born, bringing together Hawaiian language students with ʻōlelo Hawaiʻi experts and astronomers to learn this art of kapa inoa while naming 2 new discoveries.
ʻAʻole wau I manaʻo mua ka hiki ke haku inoa no kekahi mea ma ka lewa, ʻole kekahi mea e lahai ma o nā ʻaina e aʻe. I hiki ke haku ia ma ka ʻōlelo Hawaiʻi. Kekahi ʻaoʻao o ia hana, ke pono e haku inoa, pono pū e aʻo a maopopo he aha ia mea e kapa ʻia ana.
Now bring your arms in, out. What do you guys notice when he brings his arms in? Goes faster, right? And so that's the concept of angular momentum.
E no lele ua kono ia kekahi mau kumu a me kekahi mau kānaka o ke kaiāulu I loa ka ʻike, mai ka ʻike kuʻuna Hawaiʻi a I ka ʻike epeke maho o ke kilo hoku.
Kamaʻaina wau I ka kako poʻe keiki ko kako poʻe o ka ʻaina nei. Ma ka maka nui ka manaʻo. A hiki au ke ʻike. He ʻike ano malihini loa keia. No leila maikaʻi iāʻu.
And very sophisticated equipment.
After 2 days of learning and creating, the participants unveiled the 2 new inoa Hawaiʻi. Ka moʻoa lava refers to the fact that the object is a piece of a larger asteroid that broke off, like an offspring or moʻo, that will now lava or orbit on its own in our solar system. The second object is orbiting near Ka'avela or Jupiter, but it's almost mischievously going in the opposite direction of Ka'avela. Given that Epa is a word for mischievous, the asteroid was named Ka'epo Ka'avela.
Ano ka poʻe kilo hoku o ka honua. ʻAʻale paha maʻa I ka noʻonoʻo e hana pū me ka poʻe ʻōiwi I mea e haku ʻia I nā inoa. Akā inā no ia ʻaina ia mau kaunānā ʻana, he mea nui ka hiki ke hoʻano I kēlā pili, kahi I loaʻa mai ai kēia mau mea. No laila, kēia ʻano papahanā e like me A Hua He Inoa, he ke ʻehina hou kēia e ʻimi ʻia ai kēia ʻawili pū ʻana o nā pono I ke ʻelua.
So the students involved in A Hua He Inoa got busy. They got busy. They stretched their minds and imaginations, gaining an appreciation for their Hawaiian culture in relation to the universe and its origins, and an understanding of the unlimited potential for future fusions of culture and science. These students helped us really to make history and learn that their voices are not only important but necessary. The 2 names Kamaʻo Alewa and Ka'epo Ka'avela have been officially adopted by the International Astronomical Union, who is the international body whose part of their function is to officiate astronomical discoveries. This image is the exact language published in the Annals of Astronomy, and as you can see, it's bilingual, both in English and Hawaiian, further propelling Hawaiian naming practices and Hawaiian culture onto the global scientific stage. The Haumana were so excited that their contribution to science was made official internationally that one of them told me they made their mom make them brownies so they could take to school so that they could tell all of their hoapapa or their classmates that they had contributed to international scientific research. I also got some beer from one of the scientists who were on on the team for Oumuamua. This is going back to Oumuamua. That had been named after the interstellar object. The beer had been named after the interstellar object that was discovered, now known as Oumuamua. But just demonstrating the excitement and the enthusiasm that the scientific community has as well for working with our Hawaiian language and our Hawaiian knowledge. So then, after that retreat with the Haumana, I can't tell you how many months after that, but this major discovery was made known, and this is the first ever detected or imaged black hole that was discovered in collaboration with many observatories across the world, but here on Mauna Kea. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank at the moment. Maybe one of my friends on the call can put in the chat. But here on Mauna Kea, one of the observatories contributed significantly to this find as well of a black hole. So we found ourselves back in the opportunity and back in the position to contribute a name that would also, contribute to what this object is. So Vehe was the name suggested again by Uncle Larry Kimura to name the first detected black hole. And he took Vehe from the context of the Kumu and how Po is such a repeated name or word in the Kumu, which demonstrates its significance to the creation of our universe, and it being this profound dark source of unending energy and creation that repeatedly creates new and more within our universe. So Vehe is a word that means an embellishment or an adornment. So as you can see in this image, it's quite radiant in its brightness. And so Vehe, as a word together, one word is also a description found within the Kumu to explain this dark source of energy. So Vehe also went viral as a name, not just as a discovery. And the international team of scientists also adopted officially Vehe as the recognized global name for this first black hole detected. So we thought, okay, this is really something that we should pursue, and it's really quite powerful, bringing these two, these different worldviews together to co-create and identify these objects or these kupuna really with Hawaiian names, mainly because they're being discovered here in Hawaii. So we then expanded our sphere, and we, in partnering with Kahakaʻula, the College of Hawaiian Language, and their teacher, Ho'onui Ike, their teacher professional development program called Leowola. We partnered with them to also have an A Hua He Inoa experience be a part of their week-long retreat, where they had, I think, about 30 kumu from throughout the islands come and spend time here on Hawaii Island to also have a chance to engage with origin, mana'o, kumu honua from our Hawaiian context, as well as learn of different discoveries made from Mauna Kea that also talk about our origins in the universe. And these are two names that Pu'ulu Kumu came up with. Lelea Kuhonua, to describe this dwarf planet that actually orbits our sun. It was discovered by Subaru in 2015, which is on Mauna Kea. And it has a unique orbit in that it takes Lelea Kuhonua 32,000 years to complete one orbit around the sun. So the next time it will be closest to the sun is in 2078. But the name Lelea Kuhonua references a life form mentioned in the Kumu as well, and compares the planet's orbit, or the dwarf planet's orbit, to the flight of migratory birds, like the kolea, and evokes this yearning to be near and around our sun, but it flies away to great distances only to come back. It takes a long time to come back. So That Lele Aku Honua is one, as well as Poniuaʻena, which is the images on the right are Poniuaʻena, which is a quasar, a massive quasar detected in the early formation of our universe about 700 million years after the Big Bang. 3 Mauna Kea observatories contributed to the discovery of this, that being Keck, Gemini, and Euclid. And the name that the Kumu came up with evokes this unseen spinning source of creation surrounded by a spectacular glow or spectacular radiance. Both of these names have been, again, officially adopted by the international community and are recognized as the names for these 2 major discoveries. I have one of the Kumu that participated in Neowola that year. Mahalo nui loa iāʻoe e kanoe for sharing your mana'o. I wanted to share that with all of you to hear directly from one of the Kumu and participants of this experience. He Inoa, I think we're changing what is mistakenly perceived as characteristically not Hawaiian, for example, modern astronomy and astronomical discoveries, by demonstrating how powerful a role ʻōlelo Hawaiʻi plays when reintroduced as the language medium of choice. We hope to help refocus science and discovery within our Hawaiian cultural frame in order to deepen our own understanding of our language and of our identity, while also transforming what we understand and do through scientific inquiry. We're seeing great receptivity by the international scientists to adopt and recognize places where discoveries are being made through the native language. Not only are names being adopted, but scientists are beginning to learn about our language and our perspectives and are gaining a deeper appreciation for our Hawaiian culture and perspectives through that process, informing and bringing greater value to their work. So here's one of our, the Kumu that participated in the Awola, Kanoi Kanaka Ole, and I thought it would be great to just hear her mana'o of that experience.
Child and a Honua Pilani, now residing in the island of Kealapono. I was honored to participate in the 2018 A Hua He Inoa naming process. As a Hawaiian medium educator at Kahakaʻula o Keʻelikolani Hawaiian Language College at the University of Hawaii at Hilo, knowledge building is an ongoing responsibility. I'm tasked with conceptualizing traditional wisdom, then designing, producing, and teaching a curriculum which captures the interest of tomorrow's leaders. It must be relevant. It must be cool, while also transmitting traditional knowledge to connect kupuna, the antecedent, with the mo'opuna, the descendant. A Hua He Inoa provided a unique opportunity for the community to collaborate for the benefit of its children. Working with Doug Simmons, Alan Tokunaga, and Larry Kimura challenged our linguistic, historical, scientific, and cultural understanding of kilohoku, or astronomy. Through a deep dive into traditional texts like the Kumu, which is a 2,102-line birth chant for Chief Ka'i'i Mama, or a Hanaoahua Kalani, which honors the birth of King Kauikeoli Kamehameha III. We were fed facts about quasars and super black holes and dwarfs and images, vivid images from space. It was a lot of information to digest in such a brief amount of time. However, the task was clear. We were to create a bridge linking our collective knowledge and make it appear seamless for subsequent generations. That task was to give a name. Indigenous people view elements of the natural world in a familial manner. They are our kupuna, a relationship that transcends space and time. Nomenclature of these elemental forms of kupuna imparts its characteristics, gives us clues to function and purpose, and tells us how we should interact with this kupuna. Poniuaʻena reflects the understanding that Po is the source of all light. Niuaʻena are observations made by the committee about the spinning motion of the quasar and the brilliant light it emits. Lelea Kuhonua brought to mind the migratory path of birds like the kolea or the golden plover, who allow us a glimpse of its greatness. Vehe, Oumuamua, ka mo'oalewa, ka epa o ka āwela, Koniuaʻena, Lelea Kuhonua are not just names. They are the result of relating the best of new technology with a 1,621-year history of indigenous Hawaiian intelligence. When their names are called, the stories embedded in each name lives, thus the kupuna live. This process also reminds us of our obligation to value and use indigenous intelligence, keeping our indigeneity at the forefront of our perspective and actions. As an indigenous Hawaiian woman and educator, I find it critical to maintain the integrity of that legacy for my mo'opuna and my students. To do so requires me to be a lifelong learner, open to new information, and using my foundation and perspective to process and develop my understanding. It also requires me to be an active advocate for the traditional knowledge of the kupuna, even those who cannot speak for themselves. While my colleagues and I participated in the A Hua He Inoa process in downtown Hilo, many of our family and dear friends were defending a kupuna at the Mauna Kea Access Road. Our aunts and uncles, parents and grandparents were arrested by the state of Hawaii. The reason for this defense was in part due to the prioritizing of one source of knowledge and perspective over another. That is not acceptable. That is not collaboration. For true collaboration is authentic. It is without pretense, and it benefits everyone. Moving forward, I'm humbled by those who embrace indigenous knowledge and cultural practices with equity, those who are sincere in seeking native intelligence and will listen with open hearts as well as ears, and those who are willing to study the mysteries of the universe without desecration of the kupuna. Balancing our desire for new technology with the moral obligation as stewards of the land, I invite you to examine your own practice and methodologies, to explore where collaboration with the indigenous communities could be mutually beneficial to our children, our kupuna, and the universe we share. Mahalo nui.
Mahalo. So, in closing, through A Hua He Inoa, our aim is to create spaces where science and culture can coalesce and where culture makes scientific inquiry and education relevant to our youth and our community, and where new and improved ideas and solutions become possible. Integrating and including an indigenous perspective and approach, not just for the sake of inclusivity or equity, but to truly enhance the science and inquiry itself, especially when done in and around indigenous places and people. Through this kind of approach, we hope that we can better engage our youth to seek and expand their understanding of modern sciences around them and the connections therein. A Hua He Inoa helps us share traditional knowledge, values, and practices through generations, and we're perpetuating traditional Hawaiian naming practices to give life and identity to new discoveries that are part of our extended ohana. Ahu kupanaha ya Hawaiʻi ʻImiloa, long live Hawaiʻi's legacy of exploration. Mahalo nui loa no ko'okou ho'omanawa nui I Kealapono. And I'm not sure if we have time for questions, but I am more than happy to, if you want to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to engage maybe offline. Really easy email if you want, kaiukimura@gmail.com. And happy to pala'o mahope. Mahalo nui loa ya oko apo.
Mahalo nui, Ka'yu, for your presentation. Charmaine is going to share. Thank you, Kanani, for putting in Ka'u's contact in there. It was great seeing your additions and your comments, because I know you are part of that hui that has been working together. So thank you for that. Charmaine just added the links to our next session. So for those of you that are looking to get ready for your next sessions, those will start in about 10 minutes. And I have like mutes and beeps going off on my side. But thank you so much, Ka'u. If anybody has anything, you feel free. You have about 3 minutes that you can put in the chat. If not, there's a lot of mahalos going out to you, Ka'u. I don't know if you can see them. But thank you so much for your time. And it was so exciting to hear it from you, exactly how the naming practices happen for the students, and just the kauna and the deep level of meaning for each of the names that were given. And I think it kind of connects us more to the science, you know, as Kanaka, to see the importance of it, and then to make all those other layers of connection. And even the video we watched tied it all together. So thank you so much. Mahalo nui, Ka'u.
Mahalo nui.